Hope you've had a great start to the weekend, and I hope, it's been a safe long weekend. You had a start to the safe long weekend, all right?
What do you mean?
Have you been a little bit reckless yesterday with the day off?
I'm never reckless. When I'm working.
Well, you're at our Allianz
Scott, when I'm working,
team.
I never.
Were you working yesterday officially or not?
No. I was on. I was on Morning Glory with Matthew Johns yesterday morning on SEN. But then I did what I like to do when I watch football these days. I watched it at home with the phone off, with no one being allowed to distract me.
And your little staffy, Stevie.
And my little staffy, that's all I need. Me, my dog, and the football. What more do you need?
Well, they answered back the Melbourne Storm last night with a good victory against the Rabbitohs. Always a tough opposition, the Bunnies, but especially when Wayne Bennett is coaching them. 24 points to 16, and the coach of the Melbourne Storm, Craig Bellamy, joins us on the line. How are you, Craig?
Hey, Satts, how you doing?
Going very well, mate. Going very, very well, and you're probably in a lot better mood than you were last week, because you seemed really flat last week in that post-match press conference after the Dolphins lost. But was it the response that you were looking for last night?
I think our defence was certainly better. Like, that was a big thing I was disappointed in, with the Dolphins. Like, they played really well, but we got off to a really good start, and then they put 40 on us, without us putting any points on, so that was a bit alarming to me, and probably, a couple of our wins earlier in the season, I'm not quite sure whether we all got, a bit comfortable or whatever, but it was certainly the wake-up call we needed. But I thought, South fought really hard last night. Like, we had a lot of the ball in up their end. We, and I suppose, we just looked a bit disjointed in attack at times. We've had some injuries, whatever, so that there's probably a reason for that. But I was a lot happy with our defence last night. I thought that was, a real improvement.
Bellyache, thanks for joining us this morning. It was one of the weirdest sort of Storm performances we've seen in a while last week against the Dolphins. How do you prepare after a match like that? Was it different to how you normally prepare?
No, it wasn't different. Well, we just, we obviously done the review, and, we always, like to think we're honest in our reviews, and we knew we had to, improve in areas, and that's not just the players, like, at the end of the day, it's a whole club thing. The form of the team, that comes out, and everyone looks at the players, but, what the coaches and strength conditioning coaches, like, all that sort of thing, sort of, they all play a part too. So, we all had a bit of a look at ourselves and what we were doing, and probably a little bit of probably what we weren't doing, and, and then just map out our week, and then, know what we're going to do each day, and then just make sure we do it the best the best we can. And that we went back to, really went back to the basics, during the week, and we just wanted to just make sure, we've been starting well, but we just, really focused in on just making sure that, it was like the start of the game for us again, the start of the second half, and, see can we put a 80-minute performance together.
Yeah, you probably needed that close halftime scoreline to keep them focused. I want to focus on one of your players individually, Eli Katoa. Now, Craig, when he was at the New Zealand Warriors, he was 18 or 19, just come out of rugby union. I remember watching him and thinking, this kid could be absolutely anything. And then for some reason, he was on the market. And when you guys signed him, I thought, well, this kid's only going to go one way, and that's through the roof. And his development over the last 2 years has been outstanding. But I still think there's so much more left to him. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I remember seeing him, in his early days at the Warriors, and, you're always impressed with, see him on TV, or he played against us. But when he come across, the thing that sort of, being a young player and, reasonably inexperienced, like, his game knowledge, like, he's a smart footy player, El, and, he's got all the physical attributes as well, and, but like I say, like, he's a smart footy player, and, his form over the last couple of years has been as good as any back row that I've seen in the comp, and he's just been, one of our best players, since he's been here. But just his consistency, that's the thing. Just each and every week, he gets his job done, adds to the team. And he's a great guy to have around the club too. He went into our leadership group, this year. So he's added a lot to our club, and we're really feel fortunate that he decided to come to us.
Are you worried about AFL clubs maybe pinching him? He's very good in the air, Bellyache.
He is. I'm not quite sure he's got the endurance to get around that big field as AFL for 2 hours, but he'd certainly take a few marks, I reckon.
Now, do yourself and Frankie Panisi, Belly, and your coaching staff, do you sit around and talk about how much growth this team's still got this year when you haven't had Stefano and Nelson Asafa-Solomona with that 1-2 punch in the same game consistently this year?
Oh, no, not really. We just sort of, try and work out who our team is, who's available, who's not, and sometimes you've got to make decisions on, when you've got injuries or, when players, might be struggling a little bit, whether you leave them in or leave them out. So at the end of the day, early in the week, we sort of shuffle down our team who we're going to have, and then just go with that. As I said, we plan the week. We know when we're training during the week, but really focus in each day and make sure everyone's doing their job the best they can every day, and hopefully they'll help us play well on Sunday.
Billy, you and Cameron Munster had, were pretty honest in what you had to say about the Latrell tackle last night. I don't want to ask you again about that. What I did want to ask, though, is someone who's, been around in this game for as long as anyone, maybe only second to Bennett, all the rule changes, all the different interpretations, the way the game is played and we're not even just rule changes from season to season, sometimes during the season. I'm assuming it's very hard to coach these days about how the game should be played, how tackles should be approached. Is it something that you found quite something you've had to manage, something you've had to get your head around in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, it can get a little bit confusing, but it certainly gets frustrating. Sometimes the rules don't get changed, but the interpretations might get changed, or this incident is looked at a bit differently. Obviously, with the high tackles these days, I don't think there'd be too many players that intentionally go out there and go and try and hit opposition players in the head. I don't think there's anyone in the game that would do that, and I just think sometimes just I don't know whether it just gets a bit frustrating when a player's set to make a tackle and the guy with the ball actually just drops just before it gets to him. It's hard for him. You can't pull out, and it's like at the end of the day, it's really tough on players, and to be doing that. So I'm not quite sure what the answer is, and I understand that obviously with all the investigating into the head knocks and how they can affect players, and later in life. So we've certainly had to do something about it and be harder on it. But like I say, I'm just not quite sure at times whether we're suspending players and sending them to the bin when they're complete accidents. So like I say, I'm not quite sure what the answer is, but I think it's something that we need to have a look at and hopefully just get a little bit more consistent with our interpretations of the rules, all the rules. If we're going to change them, let's, if they need changing, change them, but let's not just go change them for the sake of changing.
It must be hard for the players, I reckon, Bellyache, because the game's become so much quicker in the last few years with the 6-to-go rule, but there's more emphasis on any high contact. I think that's the issue that the game's got.
Yeah, it certainly has. Like I say, we had to have more focus on that when the information about head knocks has come out, without a doubt. But like I said, I don't think there's not many players in our game that would intentionally go out and hit an opposition player in the head, with their shoulder or their arm. And I think accidents happen, and it's a body contact sport. So I just think, and again, as I say, I'm not quite sure what the exact answer is, but I think we all should be looking at it, and then perhaps just letting the rules settle at times. I think sometimes rules they change, or the interpretation of the rule changes. I think if we can just settle down and everyone know okay, this is how it is and this is the way it's going to stay. I think that would help the game and help the players as well.
Alec MacDonald, another one, Belly, comes off the bench. He's really good speed. Now, born in New Zealand, moved to Brisbane or southeast Queensland at the age of 9. Is he Kiwi linked or Queensland origin linked? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, Satts, to be quite honest. But with all due respect, I think he's quite capable, of playing for the Kiwis or playing for Queensland. He certainly, as you mentioned, like his great trait is his pace, and he's a real good kid too. He's, he hadn't played much Queensland Cup when he came to us, really. His improvement has been immense, and like I say, he's just learning, every year and just getting a bit better every year. Knowing, when to run and where to run, and his defence has really improved as well. So yeah, he's a real pleasure to have around the place. He's just a real hard worker. He says everything with his actions. He don't talk too much, but he gets the job done. And like I say, we've been really happy with the way he's been going, especially this year.
Yeah, I think he'd handle a bench position easy. Now, Bellyaker, Hillstorm Hillary is one of our big Melbourne Storm supporters and also one of our loyal listeners and viewers as well, says, "Morning, Belzer, Satts and Webby. How is he enjoying Cameron Munster on the desk with him at presses after the game? He seems to roll his eyes a lot, Bellyaker, when Munster's about to talk."
I reckon if the cameras were back on the media fellas, I reckon their eyes would be rolling as well. So sometimes I think it sounds like an episode of Seinfeld up there with Munster there. So it's a good comedy show. So but he sometimes he just thinks too much Munster. But anyway, that's okay. That's why we love him and. Yeah, like I say, he's a good value.
He is. That's probably the best description. He's a Seinfeld character.
Yeah, he is. He's close to Kramer.
He's a mixture of all that. George Eggframe.
Now, I don't know whether it happens in Clubland anymore. Once upon a time, and you would have been part of this at the Raiders over the years as a player too, Belly, is the Goose of the Week. Maybe you used to have to wear a ridiculous shirt or a different hat. Now, I don't know whether it happens in Clubland anymore because people's feelings get hurt. But if there was, would Papi go down as probably Goose of the Week with the Captain's Challenge?
Yeah, that was. I'm not quite sure what his thoughts were there, but he probably would. I'd imagine either that or keep dyeing his hair and undyeing his hair. I don't know. He might get a Goose's shirt for that as well. I'm not quite sure, but it wasn't a great challenge. But but anyway, it is what it is.
Okay, from the coach's perspective, as we let you go, Craig, thanks for joining us on this Saturday morning. For our good friends at Temper, great night's sleep night after night. Can you nominate a player who you think had a good night's sleep last night because of their performance? I thought El, he won the Anzac Day medal, so I'm sure he slept okay last night. And I thought, Trent Liero, with the amount of work he done, I imagine he would have had a good sleep as well. Yeah, good stuff. And Jared says on the text line, do you think Fletch and Hindy would be in trouble with bellyache if one of the boys got injured running away from the snake on the Matty Johns show on Thursday night?
Probably.
No, I think if that was me, I'd be running away too, to be quite honest. So, it's all good.
Hey, great stuff, Craig. Well done on the victory last night, and also have a great weekend, the rest of the weekend, preparing for next week. Magic round, of course. And thank you very much for joining us on Saturday League Kickoff. Have a great day.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks a lot.
No, he's a good man. He's a great man, Craig Bellamy, always so giving with his time. They're a fantastic club, and they're back in the winner's circle as well as you. Melbourne Storm. Hillstorm Hillary is one. Stormy Daniel, one of our viewers and listeners, would be loving yesterday's performance as well. Let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. More of the NRL round. What are we into? Round 8. Round 8.
Flying.
Coming up after the break.